Okay. So today, chapter 18, correct? But like I said last time, we are now really in review phase, sub summary and review. So Gita itself reviews everything in chapter 18, and we are also reviewing. So whatever questions and all you have, we should, keep talking about it as we gradually ease down Gita. So one thing I wanted to share with you guys, last time we spoke about a different way of slightly not different, but we looked at consciousness or Brahman in a particular way, and that was interesting because we saw it from a different angle. So today I was thinking I'll share with you how the journey of Vedanta happens, right? From slightly different terminology. It's the same thing, but it might be helpful to understand. And you tell me whether this makes sense to you also, because this is something which has been percolating in my mind as well. So we are what is Vedanta saying? Vedanta is saying that we are consciousness, we are Brahman, we are free, already free, right? So what does freedom actually mean? So freedom, I think the way Vedanta refers to freedom is not like the way we call India got independence or India got free, right? Not like that, obviously. So the freedom means that our um, happiness and our well-being is not contingent upon anything else. That's what freedom means. Literally, nothing can can move it. That means, regardless of what else is happening, what else is going on, I can be completely and totally happy and satisfied and content with myself. That's what freedom means. Because if that is not the case, then we are not free, right? Then we are dependent upon some circumstance being in some particular way. Correct? So this is a very quite a heavy statement, quite a major, bold statement which Advaita Vedanta makes, which says we are free by nature. And we've always been free by nature, we just don't realize it. So I want to make sure we all understand this, first of all. Do you agree with this statement? Can you see what it's trying to say?
It is trying to say a lot, but I don't think we are even 10% of the free mind person or the degree of freedom we enjoy.
That's true.
Hardly that is 5 to 10%. Our lives and emotions are so dependent on outside factors
Absolutely.
that we cannot say that we are free.
Yes.
We are bonded.
But Advaita Vedanta, actually Vedanta or our Upanishads, our culture is telling us we are free. And the point is, if you say this to a human being walking around, that person is going to look at you and say you're stupid. Like you have no idea. तुम जिंदगी में जी रहे हो कहाँ हो? You're in some sort of denial, right? Because don't you see what is going on around you? Like if you put your head in the sand, then you can say you're free. You can say anything you want. But the question is, we are students of Vedanta, and although we realize that today I don't feel free, right? Do we understand what Vedanta is trying to say? Because this is what Vedanta is actually trying to say to us, that we are literally nothing can shake our nature and nothing can shake us. And the thing is, it is true that there is a level of readiness for this. Even most Vedanta students are not ready to even accept this intellectually, because it is so foreign to our actual day-to-day life. It is so different, right? So when we say qualifications of a Vedanta student, this is what qualification does. You have to have a very high degree of maturity, um, and strength of mind to be able to even intellectually grasp this statement, much less, live it. वो तो दूर की बात है. So I just wanted to make sure we understand this, because this is exactly what Vedanta is saying. And we may not, as Sanjay said, we are not even 10% there. That's fine. But at least let's acknowledge, let's know what we've been studying. Okay. So why is it? So if it is free, then why is it that we don't feel like that? And what's the journey like? And then we can see where we are on this journey, right? So maybe one way to think about it is that we, right from the beginning, we are very bothered about our environment, about our external environment, right? And we've always felt that our happiness is linked directly to our environment, external environment, or external circumstances, you can say. So, what are these external circumstances, just to make sure we understand? So, external circumstances are things like the state of my relationships, the state of my financial health, literally where I live, right? Which place I'm living in. Am I living in India or am I living in America? Am I living in pollution or am I living in earthquakes? Or am I living in, some other place which is neither? Maybe I'm living in Switzerland. Maybe I'll be happier in Switzerland because that is golden place. Everything is great. Um, or some people might say I'll be happy in Scandinavia because everything is taken care of. Medical is also free. Correct. So this is our state. It's like the state of our health. Um, do our children care for us? Do our parents care for us? Does my husband or wife care for me? Right? These are our external circumstances. What is my job like? How well am I doing in my job? Um, like what are my career prospects? Correct? Are there any other major external circumstances you guys think? External environment? What am I missing?
Health, the state of our health,
Yeah.
the state of our, yeah.
So these are, let's say, I mean, you know what it is. Maybe I'm missing some things, but that's our external circumstance. So our initial journey is about, we have such strong belief that this external circumstance is going to contribute to my happiness, that we are all about changing our external circumstance. And this is the beginning of a person's life. This is where we start. So, I moved from India to America thinking that America will provide me more happiness. So I'm here. And I thought so much, what job should I be doing? Which is the right job for me, right? Or what course should I be doing which will give me the maximum prospects? Which good universities are there? Who should I marry? All these things are big, big questions for a samsari, correct? Because they matter in the sansari's worldview, they directly relate to happiness. And it's actually true. Where the samsari is at that point, it absolutely relates to happiness. So there are, you can think of, there are consultants and there are agencies and there are people who are designed to help you through this. There are psychologists and therapists who are there to help you with your relationships, and they do a great job. So all that is going on. And as we are living this life of a samsari, we are finding, over time, what happens is our circumstances do improve. Like if you look back from where you were as a child to now, most probably, not for everybody, but for most people, a lot of the things that we wanted in terms of external circumstances, we've been able to achieve. And we've had money, we got married, we want to get married. All these things have happened. Children ho gaye hain. But what happens is that we begin to see that not everything, internal, external circumstances make a little bit of a difference, but there is still a big gap. They don't prove to be that silver bullet which we were thinking that the external circumstances are. Whether I live here or live there, whether I have this job or that job, whatever, they don't prove to be a silver bullet. And this is not something you can tell a young kid, because a young kid will not realize it, will not understand it till he has gone through these cycles of external circumstances a little bit. That famous shlok that I keep talking about, for example, the Mundaka Upanishad, only after going through this world, Parikshay Lokan Karam Chittan, only after having gone through this world and examined it and done all the things, done all the good things and got all the good results, and done bad things and got bad results, and seen how all this works, having believed totally in the law of karma and tried to optimize your life and try to optimize your karma, you will probably come to the conclusion, if you haven't already, I mean, clearly you have, that external circumstances is not all there is, right? And that's usually the start of an actual spiritual journey. We can have a spiritual journey anytime. We can start learning Vedanta anytime we want for various reasons. But it's not a real spiritual journey. It's a journey just to kind of um, give some sort of balm or some band-aid. But the actual spiritual journey where Gita starts is when you come to this realization that the external circumstances are not enough. And then what do you realize? You realize that there are also what's called internal circumstances or internal environment in my mind, right? And then you begin to see that environment in my mind is perhaps, relatively speaking, more important than the external environment, because two people in the same external environment can have different levels of happiness, and it depends upon the environment of their mind. And what's the environment of the mind? The environment of the mind is just like when we describe external environment, job, and this and that. Environment of the mind is the way my mind is structured, my level of anxiety, my control over my emotions, level of discipline, um, emotional maturity, intellectual maturity. All these are part of the internal environment of a human being, right? And over time, our focus starts to shift from just the external environment to more and more the internal environment. Correct? You guys agree?
Yes.
Rajiv?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sanjay?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Totally. Mhm.
Okay. So that's where Gita comes in. Because if you see, a lot of Gita is about how to improve your internal environment.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's about what to do with our mind, how to get more discipline of the mind, how not to get swayed by the mind all the time, how to remain peaceful. Karam Yoga tells you directly that if you're work towards cleansing your antakarna shuddhi, which is your internal environment, as opposed to working towards improving your external environment, right? So that's the start of the spiritual journey, you can say. That we want to now focus on the internal environment of the mind because we know how important it is. And we begin to realize that it's actually probably contributing more than the external environment to my happiness, right? So you start doing all these things like addressing structural issues, anxiety, or other mental issues. If you have biases, you try to get over them. You have strong desires, you try to do karam yoga to get over them, not because of any other reason, but because you truly realize that these things in the mind are coming in the way of my happiness. My unfulfilled desires and obsessions are coming in the way of my happiness, right? And my guess is most of us are here at this point. I don't think we are completely convinced that the external environment doesn't matter, because external environment does matter in our mind, because we would care where we live, we would care how, what we are thought of, how our friends think of us. All these things are still very important to us, but we also know that the internal environment matters, and depending upon case to case, how it, where we are exactly and so on is all different, but this is kind of where we are all at. And this much we can understand. When I teach Vedanta and we are at this point, when I
Hmm.
say external environment doesn't matter, internal environment matters, it is still a challenge to most people. But they can see it. They're ready for this shift in mind. That yes, internal environment is also important. So that's what I found, right? But then what happens? What does Gita and what does Vedanta say about what comes next? Because this is just the start. How does the journey unfold? So you just keep, you're going deeper and deeper inside, right? The external environment is out there, internal environment is inside. Then deeper inside is the Atma. So what Vedanta is saying is that over time, your conviction that the internal environment is really what counts will become stronger and stronger. And what it may have started 80% external, 20% internal, will now convert to 80% internal and 20% external. Because you'll find that you're able to, the where you are and all will cease to matter so much. What you're feeling inside, what are your thoughts, how you're dealing with your thoughts is more important to the happiness. And you'll see people like that, and many people who are old people, they go into, this is like Erickson's theory of stages of life. Where he said in the end, you can, when we are older, we can either go into complete depression and frustration because we are unhappy with everything that happened in our life and we are bitter, or we can actually become calm and peaceful and can actually start saying, yes, actually, the external environment doesn't matter. What is in me matters. For many people, it is faith. For many people, it is God. My God is with me, right? Whatever it is. But that internal environment becomes really, really, really important. And most, or rather, many religions and many philosophies stop there. They say, yes, focus on the internal environment, focus on God or whatever it is, try to reduce your ego. This is all part of Antakarna Shuddhi. Part of internal environment is reducing your ego, the impact of your ego, all of this, correct? But Vedanta says, no, there's more. Okay. It says, actually, even the internal environment doesn't matter. Because even the happiness that you're getting in the internal environment is coming from a source, which is you yourself. That happiness is coming from you. It's not coming from the state of your mind. It's of course not coming from the state of the external environment, but it's not coming from the state of the mind either. Because you can keep purifying your internal environment and you keep purifying. At a point you're going to say, okay, I have done enough of my purification of internal environment. The marginal return is not there. And then you're ready to actually think and understand that, you know what? Actually, what Vedanta is saying is true. That I don't have to worry about any of these things. I am free. So first you have to learn you're free of your external environment. Then you have to learn that you're free also of your internal environment. And that is freedom. That's what it means by freedom when we say Vedanta is free. Correct? So that's what Vedanta is trying to tell us. And the thing is, the the crazy thing is that once you are at that level, once you are at that stage where you can see you're free, you'll say, why was I worried about all this? Why did I spend all my time trying to first improve my external circumstances, then trying to improve my internal circumstances? What the hell was I trying to do? Why was I doing all this? I could have just relaxed. I could have just been free. At that time, you can say that. But till you have gone through this process of purification or this process of cleaning yourself up, you cannot say it. So that's why a lot of the time that the Gita spends and Vedanta spends is on this process. It starts from the point where a person says internal environment is important, and then it takes you through, it tells you what the truth is. It tells you you're free. It gives you the direction, and then it takes you through the steps to say, how do you get there? How do you get there it's not going to take you there. It's just going to clean your mind up so that you can see it for yourself. That's what it is doing, right? That's the journey. And that's the journey of the Gita also. And this is what we have to understand if we have to fully say that, okay, I understand Gita from the lens of Advait Vedanta. And that's important because, there are many different lenses to see the Gita, and not everybody is saying the same thing. But this is the deepest, the philosophy that goes. So you see what this is? Does this make sense to you guys? At this point, I would say that the core of Advait Vedanta, which is that I am free always, is probably less important to us. It's just a philosophy for us right now. Just something we can rationally think of and believe or not believe, agree or not agree, because we are grappling with external environment and the issues of the internal environment. So any philosophy will help. Even Dvait will be fine. Even Christianity is good. Islam is also fine. Anything, Judaism, anything is good because this is where we are at. But eventually, if we are lucky, we can say yes, no. Actually, you know what? Experientially, I know that it's Advait Vedanta which is right, or something like that.
Dheeraj, I think one point I wanted to make
Yeah,
was, we've been talking about internal and external, right? The internal you and the external you. So one of the things that I learned from Vedanta is actually when we started Vedanta, the definition of an internal you was very different from the definition of a real internal you because we didn't know who we were, right?
yeah,
So I think that's an important learning and understanding so that our idea of internal was kind of mixed up between body mind and that's what we thought was our internal
internal.
view.
Yeah,
I think now because there's a complete differentiation between body mind and
Atman.
Brahman and
Yeah,
the real you. I think all of what you're saying makes a lot more sense now. I think I mean, I can talk about myself. I was a confused human being,
Yeah.
where, the mind was always at play
Yeah.
and in a very destructive way, some constructive, but a lot of it is, chasing your dreams and chasing your this and that. I think we're all aware of that. So I think that clarity to me, actually, that Vedanta has brought has been very, very powerful. And I think that's really what I try to absorb now more and
So
more.
the clarity that there is a difference between the
That
mind and
I'm
the,
not the mind and I'm
you're
not
not
the
the mind.
body.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
I'm, yeah,
Yeah, see, so the funny thing is I understand what you're saying, and what it has given you is a direction. But in what might be happening, I can't talk for you, I can talk for myself. What might be happening is that while we say that and we know that in our mind, in our behavior, there is still this feeling of identification with the mind and identification with the body,
yeah, there
right?
is.
So, and that is what really is what at the end of the day, when we say, you remember, I don't know whether you remember in chapter 7, Bhagwan Krishna talked about Gyan versus Vigyan. He said Gyan is this knowledge in the head. Vigyan is realized knowledge, which means you don't have to think about it anymore. It's part of your behavior,
Yeah.
right?
So I think that's the dhyasana, right? And assimilation.
Right.
So I think everybody has to go through that journey, right? I think we have, if that clarity is there, I think that
Yes,
journey
yes.
starts to become easier.
Yeah. No, no, no. The
Where,
clarity is the first step.
yeah,
You can't do anything without the clarity. I agree. I agree.
I
Totally
mean,
agree.
the lectures that Mukta sent also were sort of, enhancing
Yeah,
that why
exactly.
is assimilation so hard? Because you have to kind of question your previous way of thinking, which is deeply rooted in you, right? And actually, trap it. As soon as the mind comes into play, you have to learn how to trap it, right? And weigh in uh, the real you.
Right. I agree entirely. But anyway, I thought this is just another way to look at the journey because sometimes, I used to get confused. Okay, why am I saying, like, if the answer is I am free already, then why do I have to go through this journey? Why do I mean, it's kind of what Arjun also had the question, right? Why do I have to clarify my mind or clean my mind? It's just simply because, if I had the ability uh, to to logically think it through and then carry it out, and I had like the courage of my convictions, then I wouldn't need anything else. Like probably Raman Maharishi didn't need anything else apparently. He was an Uttamadhikari. He just got the idea, made sense to him, and he turned his life around and followed it. But most of us are not Uttamadhikaris that way, right? We have other compulsions.
Actually, I mean, the way I see it is, we put a lot of blame and burden on ourselves, right? But the first formative years of our lives,
Hmm.
we were taught, we were told, or the societal pressures molded us in a particular direction, right?
Right,
There was no intervention like this, right? But there's something to be said about going through that process and
right, right,
intervening on your own, which is what all of us are doing now. But I don't think it was all our fault in terms of you know the some of the impressions that we got from our parents. They gave us impressions based on how they
but
lived their
you got to
life, and
remember, like most of the people who turned out to be sannyasis and joined an ashram at 25 or 20 were also part of this world, right?
Sure.
They
Sure.
also had, it's just there was something different, right? In their makeup or in their level of maturity. Not right or wrong or anything, just different or in their interest.
Well,
And I'm not
they
saying
are.
one is better than the other, absolutely not. I'm just saying that um, there are differences in the environment and differences in people, both individuals too. Okay, so if no questions on this, let's do our next few verses of chapter 18, should we?
Yeah.
Huh? Are we good?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sanjay? No question, right?
Yeah.
Continue.
Continue. So, chapter 18, 16, 17, 18, he introduces this idea about sattva, rajas, and tamas. And I told you the difference between the three. This is not the gunas, the sattva, rajas, and tamas. This is more like uh, what is the ideal, what is intermediate, and what is something which is really, which needs to change right away. So whatever is tamasic, whatever is tamas, you should stop doing right now. But you'll find some things in you are rajasic that you can change over time to sattvic. But the idea of Karam Yoga is to move from tamasic and rajasic to sattvic. That's what Karam Yoga is. That's what Gita's whole thing is. So he summarized it in this way. He's taken everything and said, okay, let me lay out for you the range of human beings, in other words, or things, and tell you what is to be stopped right away and what is ideal. And follow the ideal, and then you're a Karam Yogi. Correct? So he's in chapter 18, he first talked about Tyag. What is Tyag? And I don't know if you recall, but he basically said that Tyag doesn't mean giving up activities or giving up possessions or giving up everything. Tyag means giving up the results of work, your actions. Excuse me. So Tyag means karam phal ka tyag. Karam phal tyag is tyag, not the karam tyag, right? It's not giving up the possessions, it's the feeling of ownership over your possessions. Think the ahamkar, the thing that, this is my doing. This is the results of my action, as opposed to given to me by God. So he talked about that. Then he talked about sannyas also. Sannyas also the same thing. He emphasized how sannyas is two kinds of sannyas: lifestyle and stage of life. And lifestyle, we all know what sannyasis are. The stage of life, he said, sannyas is that stage where you give up your results, fruits, right? It's basically tyag. Then he talked about Gyan. We did this last time. In Gyan, he said the Sattvic Gyan is knowledge about me, Atma, as Rajiv was saying, that I am Atma. Understanding Atma, that is Sattvic Gyan. And a Karam Yogi has that. May not have the Vigyan, may not have realized it, but he has that knowledge. And the Rajasic Gyan is the Gyan of this different, seeing everything as different. So Sattvic was seeing everything as one, Atma. Rajasic is seeing everything as different, and each has its own place, an objective, balanced view of everything around you. And Tamasic is giving predominance to one thing. Like everything, you get like completely obsessed and focused with one thing, and you think that is the answer. And that is tamasic because that is driven by your ragadveshas, totally driven by your ragadveshas and your laziness to your biases, right? So a tamasic is a lazy sort of a thing, who's not. It's very easy to follow your bias of the mind, much harder to kind of question it. So those kinds of things. So that was tamasic gyan. Then today he is talking about karma and karta. So actually, in the future, it's going to be karma, karta, buddhi, and dhriti, and sukha. So karma and karta are like very close. Like what is the right karma and who is the right karta? Right meaning sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic. And then he says buddhi and dhriti. the state of your buddhi, the state of your mind, and your resolve. And that goes to readiness, the state of your readiness. When we talk about qualifications of Vedanta and so on. And finally, he talks about happiness. What is, because we feel, you can ask many people, are you happy? They'll all say, yeah, yeah, I'm happy. Right? But there are levels to happiness. And what does happiness actually mean? Sattvic happiness, Rajasic happiness, and Tamasic happiness. The guy who's sitting a couch potato just watching TV is also happy. He's like, "Ah, I'm happy." But that is a different happiness than a happiness of a Karam yogi. So let's talk about karma and karta. Let me pull up the. So this is part of his summary. I think the first, say, one third of chapter 18 is all about this, revising all of these things in terms of sattva, rajas, tamas. Are you with me, guys? You following?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So let me just read it out rather than share it. I don't know whether it will help to share. So he says that action, he's talking about karma now, action, that action which is enjoined, that means which is prescribed by the Shastras, and which is done without attachment, without being impelled by likes and dislikes, by a person without a binding desire for result, is called sattvic action. So again, nothing surprising, right? We've seen this again and again and again, and he's just re-emphasizing that that's what sattvic karma is. But that karma, which is done by one who has a pronounced desire for the result, or again with arrogance, that means with a lot of ego, and with a lot of exertion, is called Rajasa. So a lot of willpower, lot of resolve, but of the resolve driven by the ego. Lot of ego, a feeling that I'm the one who has to achieve this, I'm achieving it. If I'm not achieving it, I'm the one who's failing. Those kinds of actions, and driven by desire. Whatever your desire is, your that is Rajasic. See, remember, this is a little counterintuitive, because what are we taught? We are taught follow your desire, right? Follow your desire, take responsibility for your actions. That's what we are taught. And that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong in it. It's the right thing to do. But that's the start. Okay? That's Rajasic. That's the start. So if I talk to my son, I will tell him, figure out what you want to do. Do what is really important to you, whatever is your heart's desire. Take ownership. Don't blame Bhagwan. Don't blame your circumstances. Take ownership. If you fail, get up. If you feel it takes a lot of work, exert yourself, apply yourself. Take extra jobs. If you're working during the day and you have to learn something, take evening classes. This is this is what we have been taught. So again, like I said, right, when we talk about earlier also, when we talk about the difference between tamasic and rajasic, it's easy to understand. And although we may be tamasic very often, we can, with clear conscience, say, you know what, let's move towards rajasic. Because I'll tell you what tamasic says. So tamasic, that action which is begun not taking into account the natural consequence, loss, injury to others, and one's own capacity because of delusion, and all this because of delusion, is called a tamasic action. And you see this all the time. People get into ventures, they invest into things, they do things just driven by a gambler. A gambler is like that, given by this urge, but you haven't thought through the consequences. Like, do you even have the capability to do it? Do you have the resources to do it? By doing so, are you going to hurt your loved ones or others around you? Right? So, we can tell our children, you should never do these things. Be smart, plan, right? Think before you do things. See whether they are hurting others around you. This we can understand. And move to Rajasic, we can understand. We tell them, yeah, follow your desires, follow your dreams. Because you have to do it. Because if you don't do it, if you don't start from Rajasic and move to Sattvic, it's not possible. It doesn't work. Those unfulfilled desires will still be there all the time. So that's the journey. And that's what Bhagwan also says. He doesn't say that Rajasic is bad. He never says that. He says Tamasic is bad. That is for sure. So stop doing Tamasic. But whatever is Rajasic, slowly move from Rajasic to Sattvic. As and when you're ready. As and when you're ready. So, like, Sattvic says, do the karma without thinking about Ragadvesha, without thinking about desire. Why? Not because you have to, by willpower, stop doing. Why? Because you've learned that following desires, even when they seem so strong, never end up giving me happiness in the end. And you can only learn this by doing. So when you are ready, move towards Sattvic. But this this understanding, that is the reason why I shared with you today this idea about the external environment and internal environment and Atma, because you have to understand that when we are at every stage, our conviction is complete that that is what will bring us happiness. So, as a young age, as a samsari, we are completely convinced that my external environment is going to bring me happiness. The job I get, where I am going to stay, what I'm going to do, who I'm going to be with, that's going to bring me happiness. Then we move towards the Karam Yogi state. Then we are totally getting convinced no, it's my internal environment that is going to make me happiness. If I can get rid of my anxieties, if I can get rid of my obsessions, if I can take a handle on my desires, that is the route to happiness. Sure, it is. And I will tell you in the last thing about the Gita, where it talks about sukh, about happiness, tamasic, rajasic, it will tell you that yes, it is a better happiness, deeper happiness than a happiness which depends upon just external environments. But that's not the ultimate happiness, correct? Then you want the ultimate happiness, which is a knowledge about yourself, knowing that none of these things is matters. Because if even at some stage you'll say, even if I have got anxieties, the hell with it. It's given to me. I don't care. It's okay. Everybody has some issues. So that's how this progression happens, and that's why I shared that. So this is really to be properly understood as a essential teaching of Gita. You see why I'm stressing it so much?
Hmm.
Then he talks about the karta, the doer. And there he says, the one who is free from attachment, who has no not egotism, who is endowed with resolve and enthusiasm, and is unperturbed in success and failure, is called a sattvic doer. That would be a great objective for us if we can get there. Free from attachment, no egotism. Egotism means not doesn't mean that you don't have an ego. It means your ego is not overtaking everything. You understand the role of your ego, which is to help you survive in this world. Egotism would be when you say your ego says you are responsible for your success and you are responsible for your failure. That's egotism. Who is endowed with resolve and enthusiasm, that is the state of a Karam Yogi. A Karam Yogi is endowed with resolve and enthusiasm. There is always resolve, there's always enthusiasm, always wants to do things, always positive, because the Karam Yogi is a happy yogi. So, well situated in the world. Unperturbed in success and failure is called a Sattvic doer. So, again, no surprise here. Then let's see what it says about Rajsik. one who has a predominance of raga and a predominant desire for the results of action, who is greedy, whose nature is to hurt, who is not clean, and who is not who is subject to elation and depression is called a rajasic doer. And first when I read this, I got a little confused. But then I thought about it and I realized how true it is. See, when we are in this life, when we tell when we tell our children or when we tell ourselves that we need to reach at the top of our profession, my chosen profession, I want to get to the top of it. You'll realize because that desire is so strong, if you look back, I mean, I can look back in my life, there were so many times when I did things which literally hurt the other person. Not violence, but were unfair, meaning like I manipulated situations to my advantage without thinking about the other person. Because I felt, oh, the other person would do the same to me. So it was like a war, it was like a game. That's what happens when you are in a Rajasic mode. So my ultimate aim might be very good. I want to meet desires, I want to be a good man, I want to be noble to the society and everything. But the process of getting there will make you do these things. Um, and that's a Rajasic doer. Because it's impossible to be a Rajasic doer without it. Because if you don't have that, then you're Sattvic. Then really there is no ego. There is no um, you know big influence of success and failure. You follow? And then he finally describes a tamasic doer. That's the one who is disturbed, immature, irreverent, deceptive, cruel, lazy, given to sadness, and a procrastinator is called a tamasic doer. And there are many such people. You'll say, "Bacha hai Dori," like still a kid, still immature. Because that person gets hurt easily, gets depressed easily. Then you tell him the reason you're depressed is because of this. Do something about it. No, I won't do anything about it. I'm fine. Go to a therapist. No, I won't go to a therapist. Like, okay, you're depressed because of your health. Start exercising. I won't exercise. Right? So, that's a tamasic doer. And that person by nature becomes like bitter to the world, greedy, um, always resentment. Why does that person have this and I don't have it? So there are people like that you'll see. So you can see that there are two ends. Tamasic and Rajasic are like two ends. Rajasic is a doer who makes things happen, who achieves result, who's productive, who follows his dreams, gets stuff done. Most business leaders are Rajasic doers. Most leaders anywhere are Rajasic doers. Tamasic are the people who are the not very successful in life and bitter at the end of their life. Right? So that's typically you can see the pattern. But Satvik is beyond all this. Satvik is saying, okay, I'll I don't want to get involved in this ego game. I want to do things. I want to stay happy, detached and happy. Okay. So these are um the karma and the karta. Next time we can go through the mind, the buddhi, and the dhrita. Meaning now then he'll talk about what does it take to have sattvic karma. What kind of a mind is best suited to be sattvic, and what qualifications of the mind do you need, and what kind of resolve do you want in that mind, right? And then finally he'll end it by saying, at the end of it all, let's talk about happiness. What is it that the sattvic karta or the sattvic person gets in terms of his happiness? How is that happiness different from a rajasic and a tamasic happiness? And why are we all wanting to go there? What's driving us? Okay. So we'll do that next time. Any questions? Anything else? We have a few minutes, we can talk. I mean, I don't know about you, but I never thought these 17, 18 chapters, anything new is there. But it's, as I went through them, they did clarify a lot of things in my mind. I mean, I find it very useful to go through this again and kind of it nails some things down, you know. It's a nice way of explaining, in my opinion, of summarizing, you can say. Things that we already knew, but it kind of, clarifies it more. And if you get a chance, read Swamiji's commentaries on this. You'll see more. I've kind of summarized it. Swamiji has gone into a little bit more detail. Okay, guys, any question? Come on.
Right.
Sanjay, before you go to sleep, anything?
I'm half sleep.
Okay. Anybody? Okay. Shall we call it a day then? Huh?
Yeah.
We'll meet in 2 weeks.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
guys.
Bye.
Cheers.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.